We think what our business is about today is helping our clients master the digital economy. We focus on helping organizations that are seeking to be disruptors in the market that they choose to serve. And if we have time, I'll talk a little bit more about what that really means. But I want to share with you a story about the mid-90s. This guy's Walter Isaacson. And in the mid-90s, Walter Isaacson was running Time magazine. He wrote the great biography of Steve Jobs, if any of you have read that. It's worth a read. It kind of shows how quirky some entrepreneurs really are. But Walter Isaacson invited a bunch of people to a meeting in Orlando, Florida. And I was among them. I'm not sure how that happened, but I was among them. So I went to this meeting, and they gave everybody who showed up a Palm Pilot wand. Notice it says Palm Pilot at the top. Shortly after this, Palm was acquired by US Robotics, and it said US Robotics at the top. But I still have this Palm Pilot wand. It was really the first PDF. I even have the box that it came in my Museum of the History of IT. I even have. Do you remember when Compaq came out with the first portable, luggable computer? It was like my mother's Singer sewing machine. So they gave everybody one of these Palm Pilots, and there were a number of sessions. So I was sitting in an auditorium. And in this auditorium, there was a guy on the other side of me. So I turned to the one guy, Peter Granoff, and I said, "So what's your business?" And he said, "We're starting a business called Virtual Vineyards, and we're going to sell wine, the finest wine from Napa Valley, on the internet, and we're going to distribute it broadly." And I thought, what a great idea, that's really neat. And he said, "In fact, I'll give you one of my business cards, and there's a code at the bottom of the business card that if you put that code in when you place your order, we'll send you 2 free bottles of wine." Bonus. Peter, I like you. So I turned to the guy on the other side of me, and I said, "What's your business?" And he said, "I'm going to sell books online." Oh. I said, "Books? You think that's going to work out?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I think that's going to work out." And I thought to myself, that's not very interesting. And I turned back to Peter Granoff. That guy. He had hair then. That guy was Jeff Bezos. And of course the rest is history as it when it comes. I just heard this morning he's getting divorced from his wife. But Jeff Bezos. The thing about Jeff Bezos is he's the consummate entrepreneur. He's in a zillion different things. They don't all work out. But his motto is, your profit is my opportunity. Your margin is my opportunity. So, you've heard the term being Amazon. Well, being Amazon is about having Amazon come along and crush your business because they undermine and they co-opt your business model. So entrepreneurs are hard to spot, and sometimes even guys that think they're entrepreneurs can't see the forest for the trees. So just some thoughts on the future. I would submit that we face today the most intense and important technology revolution that entails nothing less than the transformation of humankind. It's that big. That's that moment that I was talking about at the beginning of my presentation. We're at the beginning of a revolution that's fundamentally changing the way we live, work, and the way we relate to one another. And I'm not just talking about Facebook as the way we relate to one another. The scope and complexity of this change is unlike anything that we've ever seen. It's unlike, so your background, your experience hasn't prepared you for this. We've got billions of connected devices, Probably each of you has 4 or 5 connected devices, maybe in your pockets and in your purse. But there's billions of these connected devices that are streaming data constantly across the globe. And there are profound shifts across all industries that are marked by the emergence of business models that disrupt the incumbents. So incumbents in industries tend to think that they're safe. They're not safe. Just like Blockbuster, they're not safe. Somebody's gunning to replace them, and in many cases they will. Do you know that when the Fortune 500 came out in 1957, there were 500 companies? Only about 20% of them still exist today. 1957, 2019, that big of an attrition. So companies that you thought were safe, they're gone. They're gone. So think Uber, Amazon, Netflix, Alibaba when you think about this. Today, linear thinking, and human beings tend to think in linear. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, therefore this must be next. We tend to think in a linear fashion. That doesn't work today. It no longer serves. We need to think disruption. We need to think exponentially. We need to think in terms of quantum leaps forward in the things that we're considering. And I guess it goes without saying we have a really complex world that is totally interconnected. And we've never seen anything like this before. So our assumptions that are driven by our experience are likely of very, very little use to us in framing future decisions and actions about where we're going. Things are that changed and are that moving that quickly. Globally, certainly there are financial and political issues, and they abound. And whether it's yellow vest people in France that are protesting, or a trade war with China, a recession that's brewing in Germany. There's lots, or just discord in Washington, which seems to go on constantly, and a government shutdown. These are small. These are small compared to the global change that confronts 8 billion people that walk this earth. And this creates challenges for everybody, but extraordinary opportunities for entrepreneurs and young people. For you students that are out there, you guys are living at the best possible time to make something great of your lives and of your education. In times like this, we're first forced to learn new things that we never thought we needed to know. And entrepreneurs are exceeding, and they're so very essential to our future. Just kind of a final thought, and I have more things I want to talk about, but I'll just say something to everybody that I've learned over 50 years in business. And that is, we often want to be heroes. We often want to take something that's broken and fix it because we think we can. We know if we work hard enough and we spend enough time, we can take this broken thing and make it better. My experience is, if you see something that's really broken and messed up, throw it away. Throw it away and start over again. It is way, way easier to start something new or to change a process from scratch than it is to fix something that's broken. So entrepreneurs fill a vital and transformative role in fostering change and creating sustainable value. So how are we doing on time? Time to quit?
It's quick. 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll talk quick in 5 minutes. So I just want to talk about China for a second, because I'm hearing on the news that our trade negotiators are making great progress with China. They are so outmatched. They have no idea what they're up against. The U.S. has been duped by China for at least since the Carter administration. Our foreign policy with China has been driven by a belief that if we're nice enough and if we give enough, the Chinese people are going to want to be like us. They have absolutely no interest in being like us. None. So things that we do to placate them, we're wasting time and money. They're not seeking parity. They are seeking superiority. They are seeking domination. They have no sense of fair play at all. So thinking that we're going to have fair trade with China or a level playing field, that is absolute folly. It will never, ever, ever, ever happen. Has anybody seen these two symbols? Okay. That's the word China. These two characters mean China. The first one is the character for middle. The second one is the sign of the emperor. The vertical line with the 3 sticks and the little dot here. Middle kingdom. Middle kingdom. The Chinese people believe, and they're taught, that they live in the middle kingdom. And what that means to them is that they occupy a place between everybody else and heaven. So they start from a perspective that they're better than everybody else. They start from that perspective. When we talk about American exceptionalism, everybody poo-poos that. I think, wow, we can't think like you've got this superiority complex. I mean, who would buy into that? We're not any better than anybody else. Chinese people believe they're better than anybody else, and that gives them certain rights. They also are revisionist when it comes to history. A few years ago, I was strolling across Tiananmen Square with a group of people, and we had a Chinese guide. And we were just about to cross the street from Tiananmen Square to go over to the Forbidden City. And one of my colleagues said to our guide, "What about that thing that happened here a couple of years ago?" And the guide said, "What thing?" "You know, with the students protesting and the tanks in the street, people being massacred." And our guide, without blinking, said, "Well, that never happened." And we said, "Yeah, it happened. We've seen pictures of it. It absolutely happened." "Nope, that never happened." Really? At that very moment that our Chinese government employed guide was saying that that never happened, in Hong Kong, there was an exhibit in a museum celebrating 25 years since Tiananmen Square. Likewise, went to the Forbidden City. I know you're telling me to sit down. I went to the Forbidden City, and they were describing the Forbidden City, not the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace, sorry, where they have the longest corridor in the world. And they were saying, some of this has been restored because a few centuries ago, there was a lightning strike and things were burned here. So we had to rebuild it. But other than that, things are centuries old. That's not what happened.
The Europeans.
That corridor was burned when the French and the English, during the Opium Wars, laid siege to Beijing. And they were trying to get the emperor to capitulate because they wanted the emperor to import opium in exchange for getting silk and tea out of China. And of course the emperor didn't want to turn his people into opium addicts, some of that was happening. So instead they made a deal with the English, and this is the same deal that's going to get made this time around. They made a deal with the French and the English that they would buy their opium, but they would pay the lowest price. They would buy it, but they would pay at the lowest price. So what they did is they made that agreement. The French and the English went home. Well, we took care of those guys. And then they cultivated relationships with the rest of the world to drive down the price of opium so that the English and the French couldn't make any money selling their opium to the Chinese. This is the way the fair trade deal is going to work out for us if we're able to make one. We'll have a fair trade deal, but it's going to be a one-way deal. So I'm getting the hook. China's goal is, well, let me just finish up. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. To sum up, entrepreneurs are changing the way the world works. Entrepreneurs are changing the way China works as well. And this trend will continue into the future. We have a history of great entrepreneurs in this country. I hope you join them. For those of you that are intent on being entrepreneurs or know one, grit is the key ingredient to being a successful entrepreneur. Thank you for giving me an opportunity.